Autumn, 1876. Bristol, England. The fog rolled over the river like breath from the dead. When townsfolk pulled a pale body from the gray water, someone whispered, "It's her again." Her name was Eleanor Harding, and according to the parish register, she'd already been dead for 3 weeks. Same face, same scar under the ear, same locket engraved with the words, "Until the next life." The coroner's hands trembled as he opened the report from her first burial, because it was impossible. The first Eleanor Harding had been buried in consecrated ground, less than a mile away. Yet here she was, cold and drowned, as though death had changed its mind. The first time Eleanor died, it was said to be tragedy. The daughter of a respected surgeon, she'd been frail since childhood, coughing into handkerchiefs stained with blood. When her mother succumbed to consumption, Eleanor withdrew into silence, her bright mind dulled by grief. One morning, the maid found her lifeless on the bed, her skin cold as marble. The doctor signed the death certificate. "Heart failure," he wrote. By nightfall, she was in her coffin, sealed and buried before dawn. But the whispers began almost immediately. The maid swore she'd heard faint tapping from the coffin as it was lowered. The gravedigger said that days later, when his shovel struck the soil above her, he thought he heard something move below. The doctor dismissed it as hysteria. "The dead don't complain," he said. But others wondered if Eleanor had truly been dead at all. 3 weeks later, the river gave her back. Her body was too well preserved, the skin unspoiled by decay. Her lungs, however, were filled with water. She had drowned. Dirt was packed beneath her fingernails. Her hands were torn, as though she'd clawed her way through earth before finding the river. When her father identified her, he fainted. The vicar refused to bless her body again. "We buried her soul once," he said, "and I will not disturb it twice." They placed her in a lead-lined coffin, sealed with iron nails, and buried her beyond the churchyard wall. But questions refused to stay buried. The newspapers called her the Phantom of Bristol. One printed her portrait under the headline, "Woman escapes death, only to meet it again." Another claimed she'd been seen walking near the moors after the second burial, her locket glinting faintly in the dusk. Soon after, her father fled the town. Years later, among his belongings, a journal was found, a confession of sorts. He wrote, "When I saw her the second time, I knew it was not disease. I knew it was my doing. I could not let them cut her open, not again." Doctors later theorized Eleanor had suffered from catalepsy, a rare condition that mimics death so perfectly even physicians can be fooled. Others whispered that her father, tormented by guilt, had dug her up after hearing noises from the grave, and what he found had driven him mad. Yet, not everyone agreed. The church caretaker claimed that after the second burial, the grave of her first coffin appeared disturbed, as if something had clawed its way out from within. For decades after, the river path was avoided. Children said they heard a woman's voice beneath the surface, calling softly for help. Fishermen claimed their lines caught on something smooth and cold, just below the current. In 1921, when construction crews dredged that stretch of riverbank, they unearthed a small lead coffin with no inscription. Inside were the remains of a woman, her bones folded neatly, and beneath her clasped hands, a tarnished locket inscribed with the words, "Until the next life." Some say the town reburied her quietly that night. Others believe they left the coffin unsealed, afraid that locking it again might tempt fate a third time. Eleanor Harding, the woman who died twice, remains a riddle between medicine and myth, life and the whisper of what comes after. Perhaps she was the victim of ignorance, mistaken for dead in a world that barely understood its own science. Or perhaps something within her simply refused to rest. Maybe, even now, the river remembers. If this story lingers in your thoughts tonight, subscribe to Echoes of the Past for more tales that history tried to bury. And tell us in the comments, from which country are you watching? Because stories like this have no borders, only echoes.